The NBA has a serious problem in terms of conference competition. How can the Eastern Conference feel like 4 teams while the Western Conference is this stacked? Almost every team feels like they have a shot to battle in the playoffs, and today we're going to see what they could each do to make that happen next year. Starting from the bottom of this year's standings, we have the Portland Trail Blazers. This is arguably the only team that won't be trying to make some noise in the West next year. Scoot Henderson had a rougher-than-expected rookie year, but honestly, the blame shouldn't be all thrown at him. Portland's roster construction was guard-heavy during the Dame era, and somehow, they've stayed with that mantra. Scoot, Sharp, and Simons are all promising young guards they want to develop. But you want to see them all have the ball more, creating a logjam, along with veteran Malcolm Brogdon. Portland will remain at the bottom last season, but might need to make some guard decisions sooner rather than later. Also, buy Ayton some road salt for the winter. Blazers DeAndre Ayton, out versus Nets after ice prevents him from leaving neighborhood news, scores, highlights, stats, and rumors. Bleacher Report. Next up is the super intriguing San Antonio Spurs. With Wembanyama getting a full NBA offseason to build on his monster rookie year, you have to imagine this team can win more than 22 games next season. It feels like the franchise has 2 key building blocks around Wemby in Vassell and Sochan. Beyond that, they should look to potentially package up picks and someone like Keldon Johnson for a bigger name. Chris Paul has been linked to the Spurs for a while now, but honestly, what about a trade from the bottom 2 West teams? Malcolm Brogdon and Jeremy Grant for Keldon and a pick? Not a huge swing, but overall, a win for both teams. The Memphis Grizzlies finished with 27 wins, but we've seen what this team can do when healthy. With Ja and other key contributors out, Memphis got to see what they have from recent draft picks like Gigi Jackson. It'll be interesting to see them without Steven Adams next year, but fully expect them to battle in that 5 to 8 seed range next year. A team that will probably slide in the opposite direction, though, is the Utah Jazz. Danny Ainge and Will Hardy are too smart at basketball to have this team fully tank. Even after trading star pieces, they found gems Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler, and Keontae George. But with this conference continuing to strengthen, it will be much harder next year to match those 31 wins. Be on the lookout for Utah to finally be a seller at next year's trade deadline. The Houston Rockets, on the other hand, seem determined as last year to be buyers and make the playoffs. Sengun looks amazing, and Jalen Green put together an offensive explosion to end the year. I'm not sure what they could use in terms of roster construction. Honestly, I might just run it back and hope guys like Amen Thompson and their upcoming 3rd overall draft pick develop nicely. Rockets should again call for the Warriors to come out to play next year. Golden State pulled away from the Rockets for the final play-in spot, but the future seems even more murky than this year. Can this aging core really command big-time contracts if they can't get their team to the playoffs anymore? I think we'll see some key decisions in the offseason that reveal the front office's plan. Kuminga played well for stretches, and they could use him to bring in some more veteran help for the roster. Or they'll go the other way, deciding they don't want to ride into the sunset with Steph, Klay, and Draymond and trade some of them. Steph would immediately be off the table, but some teams might shell out some assets to bring in that championship pedigree. Warriors are a big-time enigma that could go in any direction next season. Sacramento will also have some tough questions ahead of next season. Their playoff drought ended in 2023, so how do they get back in for 2025? It's tough to see a path when Malik Monk was their highest usage rate player. He was in the 95th percentile for all guards according to Cleaning the Glass. And although Sabonis is an offensive juggernaut, rim protection is always a struggle. They'll be hunting for a rim protector like Robert Williams or Clint Capella to not get lost in the deep sea of the West next year. The team that sent them packing from playoff hopes this year was the LA Lakers. LeBron will turn 40 in next year's season. An incredibly unique situation for a franchise to try to figure out. Their leading man is entering his 40s. Honestly, the Lakers situation is enough to do an entire video. In summary, the Lakers have to find higher quality role players. They don't need to end up like Phoenix and sell their soul for a big 3. Just get a couple of better shooters, maybe a ball handler who can also defend, and the Lakers can get back in the mix behind AD and LeBron. AD's old team in New Orleans, I quietly think, will be another team to slide down a bit next year. They have a lot of depth and young talent, but Zion and Ingram aren't dependable. With this deep of a Western Conference, you need to have your main two guys show up on a more consistent basis. Even without injuries, you would still see both players at certain points disappear in games. The Pelicans will either go all in and trade for someone like Donovan Mitchell, or run back the same fingers crossed for Zion mantra and fight for the play-in. The Phoenix Suns got swept in the playoffs by Minnesota, but seeing the Wolves take down Denver, maybe it's not as dire as we first thought. The Suns must find a way to revive Beal's offense and shell out the money to reassemble a competent depth chart. Regardless, with the offensive powers of Booker and KD, this team should still have a hold in the West. Also, Bol Bol was in the 96th percentile for bigs in points per shot attempt at 145 points per 100 shots. Next, the Mavericks were a 5th seed, but it now looks like they were always secretly the 1st seed post-trade deadline this year. With another year of continuity, what more is there to say than all hail Luka Magic? If you're a Clippers fan, you're probably praising anyone but Luka. The Clippers were again matched against the Mavs, but this time, Doncic got the best of them. With a new arena and an aging core, Steve Ballmer will max out every credit card to get fans in those seats. Realistically, I think the Clippers' crazy hot run during the regular season was the good vibes of freshly traded James Harden. History predicts we'll see the vibes begin to sour this year, and along with their two top guys not being vocal leaders, don't be surprised if the locker room turns sideways next year. Finally, we come to the three-way tie for the number 1 seed. First, we have Minnesota, the team that just shocked the world by sending Denver packing in the second round. You can only imagine Edwards will continue to improve in the offseason. But I'm starting to think Cat isn't the guy you want as a number 2 on offense. And with Naz Reid coming off the bench, maybe you can turn Towns into something more helpful. If they could package him for a youngish ball handler, and then find a discount stretch 4, Minnesota might be more balanced on both sides of the ball. The Denver Nugget was a team we thought perfectly balanced and would march to their second championship. Instead, they have some brainstorming to do. The youth they brought in to ideally grow into a bench mob has not panned out so far. The all-bench lineup was Denver's 5th most used lineup at 157 possessions. The average point differential was minus 26.7. Blowout losses might skew those numbers, but you get the point. We've mentioned percentiles earlier. This would be in the bottom 2 percentile of the league. Denver will not waste another year of Nikola Jokic, so expect them to make some moves with guys like Peyton Watson and Strothers. Last but not least, the Oklahoma City Thunder look like the most dangerous team in the West heading into next year. They got their stress test in the playoffs, and now Sam Presti will accept that he needs to cash some of those picks in and polish off this juggernaut of a team. Jarrett Allen is a name that comes to mind. Could the Thunder bring him in and be unstoppable through the playoffs? In a Western Conference like this, it's hard to say. Almost every team is trying to improve, and could take some big swings to get past the previous top 3 MVP finishers. Let us know what you thought of your team's take, and what you want them to do in the offseason.